Hello and welcome. It is Friday Live Time. I am Amanda Farmer and I am going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page and also to everyone out there on LinkedIn. How you doing? Happy Strata week. Happy week in Strata. It is wonderful to be here with you. It is also for those of us who are parents halfway through the school holidays. We are marking our halfway point. Congrats and cheers. You've made it this far. Yes, I do have a wine with me today for our Friday Live, and I hope you do too. If you are so inclined, you are more than welcome to. I gave a little hint in my email that went out today that I am somewhere different, where I am lucky enough to enjoy the second half of the school holidays next week with my family. Did anybody guess where I might be from reading my email? I gave you a little hint about the wine that they have here. I am still in New South Wales. I am a couple of hours out of Sydney and I am sipping on a lovely Semillon, which is the specialty of this area. Are you guessing? Yes, I am in the beautiful Hunter Valley. So lucky to be here with family and settling in. We arrived today and I do have some little ones running around the house, my son and his cousins. They're having a fab time. So if you hear that going on in the background, it's all good. And I'm hoping that my audio is coming through okay. Being in a different spot, that's something I'm always concerned about. Rochelle is giving me a thumbs up here. So that is awesome. What are you guys up to? Drop me a hello. Let me know where you are today, perhaps. Are you a parent who is doing the school holiday thing as well? I know a lot of my colleagues were taking time off. It was nuts last week. It's always nuts the week before that Easter long weekend, but I found particularly so because we were then heading into school holiday period. Everybody works and works up till that Thursday. Some of you keep working over the long weekend. I noticed that, strata managers. I'll have a chat to you about that. Give me a hello. I can see Sean there saying hi. Sean, let me know if I'm allowed to out you from our mention on the podcast. I think I am, because our podcast episode 259 this week, Sean was the inspiration. Sean's comment on the Facebook page about improving communications from our owners to our strata managers inspired this week's episode and has inspired this further conversation, which we are going to have with our special guest who is waiting in the wings here with us. Very, very experienced strata manager, excellent communicator, someone who is at the coalface of that relationship management between owners, committees, and strata managers. So we will be bringing our special guest on very, very shortly. A few more hellos coming in here. Michelle saying hi. She has a glass of orange red. That sounds confusing. I know exactly what you have there, Michelle. Enjoy. Jen is here from a sunny Kingscliff. Good to see you. Sean's in Dulwich Hill and he's saying lol. Yes, thank you very much, Sean, for that inspiration for this week's podcast episode. Natalie is here, a fellow in a Westie. Awesome. Natalie's on the water for now. You're a busy lady, Natalie. I know, always on the go. This conversation about communications, about communication management and reputation management that we've been having for the last couple of weeks started with episode 258. I was chatting to PR guru Elizabeth Huesler. Elizabeth is also a strata resident, an owner, a committee member, and working closely with people in the property sector, businesses in the property sector wanting to better manage their reputations, preferably before things start going wrong. Elizabeth shared how our strata managers can, she says, kill it or win it in their very first communication with us. And she gave some really hands-on tips for how we can be communicating better as professionals in our emails, in particular in that first communication with new owners. We talked about how saying sorry is not a natural ability for us human beings. It is a learned skill, and there are ways that we can get better at saying sorry and making a difference through the way that we do say sorry, put our hand up, say we made a mistake with our clients. We talked about how buildings can improve their reputation and increase their attractiveness in a competitive market. And I think that is what sparked Sean's comment on the Facebook page, where he said, after listening to that episode, how do we as strata managers encourage owners or teach owners that they too can improve their reputations by communicating better with strata managers? And therein lay the seed of the idea for podcast episode 259, Strata Managers Are Not Punching Bags, is what I titled it. And thank you to everyone who's dropped me a note in my inbox on the website as well and on our social feeds, letting me know that you really appreciated the content of that episode. Rochelle's going to drop the links to each of those episodes here in the comments section, so you can head over and check those out if you haven't yet. And Rochelle is just giving me a reminder to make sure I show up our comments here. I can do this little trick, which I always forget to do. And Rochelle reminds me. Thank you, Rochelle. We'll remember to do that. And thank you again, Sean. So continuing this important conversation, we have our special guest. We know who she is, Jane Giacobbe, the client relationship manager from the Strata Plus Group. I'm going to welcome her in very soon so we can continue talking about how we can get better at communications, particularly at that point where strata managers are taking on new buildings. It is a tense time. It is a time that is ripe for frustration. I know I've been on a committee when we've engaged a new strata manager, that transfer process. There are things to learn on both sides, owner, strata manager, and things we can be implementing to make that process nice and smooth. I know there's a few fans of Jane and some Strata Plus diehards out there who are tuning in today. I'd love for you to say hello here in the comments, whether you are on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Say hello and let us know you're looking forward to hearing from Jane. Before we welcome in Jane, I want to do my best to give you a flying summary of some new legislation that we have here in New South Wales that commenced, hasn't commenced, Amanda. It hasn't commenced, it has been made. It is our new Community Land Management Act and Community Land Development Acts of 2021. I say this legislation has been made. That happened, I believe, exactly 2 weeks ago, but it hasn't commenced yet. It will commence towards the end of this year. And the reason for that delay is because we need some supporting regulations still to be made. So the legislation has been made. It is what it is, It's not going to be changing. And you can see the versions as made of this legislation over on the legislation.newsouthwales.gov website. And again, Rochelle will pop those links in the comments here for you. Generally, the legislation has been developed to bring the community scheme laws in New South Wales as far as possible in line with the strata schemes laws. Now, we have had community scheme legislation for the last 30 plus years, and it hasn't ever had, as far as I'm aware, a whole scale review. Unlike our strata schemes legislation, which we have reviewed twice now in 1996 and 2015. So long overdue for this legislation to be looked at. And some of us professionals in the industry will remember that we started with a position paper on reforms to the community schemes legislation way back in 2014. So we've been talking about this for quite some time. 7 years? 6 years? 7 years. There's my maths. 7 years it has taken from that position paper to then develop our new legislation and have that made. So the changes as a whole bring us more in line with our strata schemes legislation here in New South Wales, and that includes things like the dispute resolution process. Some of you strata managers will know that before the tribunal, we have had our strata schemes dispute resolution going in front of members of the tribunal, hearings in person. But our community schemes were still on what I call the old paper system of adjudications. There would be decisions made by adjudicators to resolve disputes, and community schemes did not, in the first instance, have to go before the tribunal. So there was a really different system there, and often people forgot. Owners forgot, strata managers forgot that if you are managing a community scheme or having a dispute within a community scheme, you don't go before a member of the tribunal. You file your application to have your dispute considered by an adjudicator. So that has now changed. So our community schemes will now be going before members of the tribunal when there is a dispute, the same way that our strata schemes are. So that's a great thing. Bylaws. We are bringing our bylaw rules in line with our strata scheme rules. Restrictions on harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive bylaws. So we cannot have bylaws in community management statements that are harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. And I think we will start to see decisions in our tribunal made in the strata scheme context applied across to the community scheme context to work out exactly what is a harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive bylaw. And of course, we all know the hot topic in that space is pets. So bringing our community scheme legislation in line with strata schemes when it comes to bylaws. Increased penalties for bylaw breaches, registration when we are changing our bylaws in our community management statements. Did you know you had 2 years to register changes to your CMS, just like we used to have with strata schemes? That's now going to be 6 months from the date of the meeting where the bylaw change to the bylaws is resolved, 6 months to register that change to your community management statement. So you might tell me, strata managers, that you're already doing this in your businesses, which is great. Applying that 6-month rule, that is going to be the law from the end of this year when this legislation commences. I'm seeing a few more hellos come on in. I want to say hi, Rhino. Is that how I pronounce your name? Hey, Rhino. Dorothy is here with a champagne in hand. Awesome. Rhino saying, welcome, Jane, which is very kind. So good to see you. And Sean is here. Nice to see you. Good afternoon to you. We have further changes in our Community Land Management Act is that we are regulating our strata managers the same way that they are regulated under the Strata Schemes Act. We have maximum 1-year appointments in the first year or at the first AGM for a community scheme, and then maximum 3-year terms and no automatic rollovers. So same as our strata schemes, that's now being brought into our community schemes. Strata managers also having to disclose commissions and any education and training benefits that they've received, all the same stuff we're doing in our strata schemes, okay? So you're kind of getting the message here. And I hope that these are things that you've been doing anyway because you're applying a consistent practice across your business, whether you're managing strata schemes or community schemes. New powers for associations to recover expenses when they're recovering unpaid levies, unpaid contributions. That was previously only the law for strata schemes, now the law for community schemes as well. Electronic meetings, electronic voting enshrined in the legislation, secret ballot process. The chairperson has the power to declare a quorum at a meeting after 30 minutes. So bringing that in line with our strata schemes. Restrictions on the rights of developers when it comes to votes on matters relating to building defects. Restrictions on power of attorney votes in contracts for sale, also in our strata schemes legislation. Limits on proxies and laws relating to priority voting. So there's a lot there. And I did promise when I posted about this last week that I would give you a podcast episode with a little bit more information and some cross-referencing to the actual legislation, which I hope will be helpful for you. Just scanning it myself at the moment, and I will get that further detail out to you, likely via the podcast. Bear in mind that there is also a new Community Land Development Act 2021. So that's assisting developers to do things with community schemes that the legislation has otherwise prevented them from doing. We're also changing the definition of developer to be the original owner or the owner of a development lot. On other definition changes, I do believe sinking funds are now capital works funds in community schemes. So you're seeing that come into line. The issues where we couldn't add association property to a scheme, those are being resolved by the Development Act, and create association property by special resolution. We're now able to do that. So long overdue things that have been causing difficulties for developers and for lawyers who are advising developers are being resolved with the Community Land Development Act, which is due to commence towards the end of this year. So that is your very much high-level flying summary of the changes to our community schemes legislation, and I'm looking forward to bringing you some more detail on that. If you're listening in and you have specific questions about whether we can or can't do certain things in our community schemes now because of this legislation, please do pop a comment in here. I'm happy to do a quick search up of the legislation for you, or come back later and answer that question for you. You guys know what you're facing on the ground when it comes to community schemes, and happy to give you that practical guidance. Okay, now you're all here ready and waiting for our very special guest here today. I am going to welcome her in. She is Jane Giacobbe, the Client Relationship Manager for the Strata Plus Group, which spans New South Wales via 6 local offices. Jane is level 3 accredited, having obtained her Strata license way back in 2006. She has 20 plus years of Strata experience in New South Wales. That's because when you see her, you'll realize she started when she was 15. And also in Victoria as a Strata manager in a variety of senior management positions. Jane is an advocate for well-run, harmonious communities. She has, and I can attest to this, a calm, friendly disposition. And she couples that with expertise to enable her clients who are dealing with legislative complexities to do so with ease, and to recognize the relationship intricacies we have within our schemes and with our managers. And that is what we're here today to talk about. I am bringing her in. Here is Jane Giacobbe. Hey, Jane.
Hi, Ahmed. That was the kindest introduction I think I've ever received. So lovely.
Aw.
I'm blushing. Thank you.
My pleasure, and it is all true. We don't tell lies here on this show. It's a pleasure to have you here. I have been twisting your arm for a little while now to come and chat with me live, so I'm so pleased that we've been able to make it happen. And I know that you've had a busy week because you are one of those people I was talking about earlier that has little ones and is in the school holiday fog. Now, tell everyone, if you don't mind, what you've been doing this week, because you're kind of my hero, if not a little bit insane. Where
Shame.
were you?
I feel insane if that validates that I do. No, so we took our little girls. I have a 3-year-old, just 3, and a 6-year-old, so started kindy this year. We did a road trip on Good Friday to Melbourne. So with, I think, half of Sydney, there were no stops at McDonald's because it was 30 deep each time we went to stop. So I think there was one petrol fill up that we managed to squeeze in there. Overall, a lot of chocolate was obviously eaten in between then. So a lot of highs, a lot of lows. Very, very long car trip. Very long car trip. But it was worth it. We had spent some time in Melbourne and moved back just before COVID hit. So the little ones hadn't seen Nonna and Nonna. So it was lovely family time. It was lovely, but just next time we'll obviously fly, I think. That's the best way.
You're still recovering.
True. Yes,
well,
definitely.
We traveled two hours to get here today, and that's about my limit with a little one in the car. So you are my hero. Good on you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I just want to show here, Natalie is here saying, hi, Jane.
Oh, hi, Nash.
Good to see you.
And thank you to the Strata Plus team, I have to say, for their support as well, Amanda. It's so lovely to have this amazing team.
Are you in the office there?
It's really, well, I will admit, I'm not sure if David and Ollie are listening, but I did kick them out of their office, so I stole it. And I'm sitting here because it's the quietest space. So I thought it was the best option. Yeah.
And everybody's outside. Everybody's outside watching you or pulling faces
Yeah,
at you through the
around.
glass.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, that's right. Shame.
Well, thank you, David and
Thank
Olivia
you.
Ferguson, for giving up your office, even if you may not
True.
know it until now. Surprise to
I know.
Jane, so we can have this chat. Now,
Shame.
I have shared already, Jane, that you are the client relationship manager for Strata Plus. Now, that might be a role that a number of our larger strata management companies have in their businesses, and owners might have heard that before. Maybe similar to a business development manager. What is your role? What do you do? What does a day in Jane's life look like?
Mhm. So look, there is a bit of business development, most definitely. I think the role is it's more detailed than that. So I'm very lucky with Strata Plus. The directors of the business, we're heading towards having a relationship manager in place, a client relationship manager that would be able to be, I suppose, that first point of contact for all future or new clients, someone that can speak with them and maybe guide them through to understand the level of service that they should expect or they should be receiving. If they're unhappy, then obviously have that opportunity to further pass on some more information and meet with them. I also work with the team. So obviously that's bringing on the new business then, and that generally, to be honest, is in the existing space. So that means properties that are already developed, not necessarily focusing just on that new development space.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also work with our team here just to help them. I suppose overall, just with their clients that they have, just to help make sure that it's a good level of customer service that's being received, and it obviously always is here. But just to sometimes things maybe don't feel right for the strata manager, and they're maybe missing something. So just to bring me in to be able to manage that relationship and just help a little bit as a middle person, just to make sure the
Mm-hmm.
clients are happy with everything and they're receiving the level of service that they expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's basically
Well,
it. We do, yeah.
sounds like an important role. And you are, as I've heard, welcoming in new clients, perhaps going to meet with them when they're making their decision about changing strata managers. So, in my mind, you probably have a real insight into what owners are saying or thinking at that
Mm.
time when they want to change managers. Can you tell us what the most common reason is that you hear that why buildings want to make a change?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you'll probably already know this, of course, and a number of the strata managers that might be listening. But I think the top two that come to mind would be lack of communication or poor communication, um, and lack of transparency. So obviously that goes across a number of different areas, but it could be maybe that the KPIs aren't being met for the level of service that the clients are expecting. Maybe phone calls aren't returned, or there's no response to emails. The lack of transparency is definitely one that pops up again and again around inability to access documents when an owner
Mhm.
or a client wants to. So whether that's because they're in a tiered structure or maybe aren't authorised to have it, or whether it's just the system that's being used by the strata manager. So I think the lack of transparency and the poor communication is definitely the top two that stand out for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We're not talking about it's too expensive or my strata manager is inexperienced and doesn't know the law and got us in trouble. It's not that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's the more simple stuff. And I liken that to our experience as lawyers. When I'm training young lawyers or law students, I often say, we don't get sued if ever we get sued. We don't get sued because we've given the wrong advice or we've made this obvious mistake. We get sued because of the little things, the administrative error, the date
Yeah.
that you forgot to diarize, the document that you forgot to save. So I'm hearing the
Yeah.
same thing in your space, but it would also seem
Yeah.
to me that communication issues, lack of transparency should be easy things to fix. I mean, why are our strata
Yeah.
managers, do you think, suffering from these ills?
I do think it should be. I agree. I think the customer service experience, it should be standard practice. That should be what you're doing, and then setting the bar higher. I don't know, a number of different reasons. I think the capacity matter comes back in
Mm,
to play. So that being, that a strata manager has a certain portfolio, but due to the size of the business or the structure of the business, they're potentially got too many buildings to look after within that
yeah.
portfolio. So therefore, they're maybe putting the fires out that are larger at that time than just your everyday communication. So focusing on maintaining that relationship. So instead of maybe being the relationship, and the proactiveness, it's just reactive a little bit more. I feel like that's a part of it. I mean, obviously then the systems come into play a little bit. What systems are the company using aside from that? Are they digital? Are they easy to access? We're very lucky, without pitching too much to Strata Plus, and I promise all the owners here I won't, but we are very lucky here that this is the best software I've ever seen. Honestly, it's the only Strata company that use it in New South Wales, along with the Knight in Melbourne. So that is completely transparent. It's very easy to access. You can pull down an invoice today, but also from 2 years ago. So that's amazing technology. But I think definitely something like that is frustrating to owners, because if they're, making a phone call, they can't access something, and then they're not receiving the phone call back, or they're not receiving it. Builds. There's a number of little things. So the digital side of things, I think maybe just I think just the overloading and the lack of capacity.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from owners, that their strata manager is just constantly putting out the fires, coping with too many clients, too many buildings. But the business model of our strata management is such that business owners are saying, well, if I'm going to make money out of this, then we need to have a lot of buildings, and we need to have not as many strata managers. So that's a concern, and I'm not sure that we have the answer to that yet. I'm just seeing some comments come in about Jane's mic dropping out. Her volume dips sometimes. I don't know if that's the headset, Jane, or...
Oh, guys, I'm using a new headset. Is that better like that?
I think it's good. It could also be when I butt in that Jane gets kicked out.
But I am a waffler, so I do need to be butted in on sometimes. But look, I think, capacity is a big issue. I do know, I mean, once again, I know that the directors here are very focused on that. It's an industry thing. I think it's the structure of the business, the way you said the setup. We're very lucky. We tend to grow through reputation. It's not about sales or marketing or anything like that. But I think it's overall, it is a common theme in the industry, sadly.
Now, Jane, I imagine you going physically, maybe this year, maybe it didn't happen as much last year, but this year, going out physically to meet new clients or potential new clients, maybe going to their meetings where they're considering appointing you, and having to stand up and speak to the meeting and say why you should be chosen over anybody else. I imagine sometimes that's difficult. Maybe there's some competition there in the wings. Have you got any stories about pitching for new business and what happens in those scenarios?
Okay, do I start with a funny one first? I think I don't look, there's a couple that come to mind. There are a couple that come to mind. One I will explain a little bit later, because it's interesting when the votes aren't necessarily always in your favor. That's an interesting one. But the funny one, I did have a number of phone calls with this strata committee, and we covered off everything that was technical, which was great. So I said, look, I would love to come out and meet with you on site and have a look. And I felt that the committee understood what their obligations were and how this process was going to flow. And so now I was coming out to have a look. And when I went there, I was greeted by the secretary, which was lovely, but she had a supersized parrot, a live parrot on her shoulder. And
like a pirate.
Yes, definitely. And I just, oh my gosh, that is lovely. But once I entered the unit, I realized that, this is lovely. She rescues birds, which is lovely. Maybe 50 of them were there in this unit. Little babies. Yep. And then on the balcony, it had been converted into a beach. So it was an enclosed balcony, but it was filled with sand, and there was some little pond pools that had been set up, and it was obviously for the birds to play and bathe. And so I just thought, okay, I explained to them that we could talk about things further, but we definitely needed to discuss the bylaws and maybe review those as we move forward if we were going to be successful. Oh, I thought, shame. They really, anyway. So that was hilarious, because obviously I was trying to be friendly and professional while thinking, oh my goodness, like, wow.
And I imagine you were thinking, do I really want this building?
I know. But what about the other owners that were placing their trust in the committee? Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. So I think, and a difficult one, not so long ago actually, where it was a very large scheme, and we had gone through a process of submitting a proposal. a number of phone conversations and, just informal information provided and exchanged. When we went to present at the meeting, there was another strata company there as well, which we became quite quickly aware were closely aligned with a significant number of the committee members. So that was very challenging. We had to present. So it was a matter of making sure that we provided enough information to all the owners that were present so they could make an informed decision, but still keeping a couple of cards close because I wasn't willing to let away all our little tricks of the trade and pass on too much information. But I think too, also, the other strata company were lovely. We introduced ourselves and it was just a very, very difficult situation. We were also questioned about things from the committee members that were aligned with the other strata company that they were proposing that were not relevant to the scheme or the pitch at that time. So that was, it was very, very challenging.
You feel a little bit ambushed in that kind of situation, perhaps.
You do, and I think my passion comes in because my passion kicks into gear where all owners are involved and all owners need to understand, and have the information at their fingertips, not just the committee. We trust the committee are doing due diligence. And in this particular case, they potentially weren't. So they hadn't vetted things properly at that stage. So that was an interesting one. I think, I mean, there's quite a few.
I love it. I'm sure you've got
go on,
so many stories, but there's always one story that comes across that I haven't heard before, and that apartment full of birds with the beach on the balcony is one of them. I mean, did you have any photos? Can you say?
No, I didn't. No, but I can tell you they were not all caged. I can let you know that. So
I have a thing about birds. I can't just. No, I would be in and out. That's it. Wouldn't matter.
Well, I can. All right,
I'm heading over to the comments here because there has been a very insightful comment here again from Sean on the topic of how do we deal with these capacity issues with strata managers and constantly putting out fires, being reactive, not proactive. And Sean's asking, are management fees too low? And I can see also Natalie has said so much yes, high fees, less buildings per manager, better communication, or we consider how the entire service is delivered.
Yeah.
I've been saying for a number of years now that strata managers need to be charging more. And when I say that to strata managers, they say, that's great, Amanda, but unless everybody does it, we're going to price ourselves out of the market. And in my view, the higher fees also goes hand in hand with this shift to professionalism, a higher standard of education and training for our strata managers. What do you think about that concept, Jane?
No, I agree. I totally agree. I agree with yourself and Natalie on that. It's very difficult. Gosh, it's difficult. I think it comes back to education or passing across information. So how do we get enough information out to these owners that feel that the fees are too low? Are too high? How are we passing out exactly what is being delivered and what they should be expecting? And it should be value. They should be having value if they feel that their investment is well managed and it's cared for, and that they're able to place a value then on that money that they're paying. Things will change. But I agree with you because you are undercut by different other competitors in the industry, and I think I don't know how it changes. It's a very, very tricky one because often for myself, I find unless I can get in front and meet with these people and have an opportunity to explain to them, their responsibilities as well as an owner, as well as a committee member, and why they need to engage a strata company that will look after their best interest and be their advocate for all owners. It can come down to dollars, but I don't know how. I know that Strata Plus does deliver training for our existing committee members, but that's on the industry as a whole. I don't know.
I really like the idea, Jane, of setting expectations at the beginning. And I think you said earlier that's part of your role as a client relationship manager, to be meeting with the new clients and setting those expectations. I imagine you're saying this is what we do. Perhaps more importantly, this is what we don't do. And this is what our fees cover. And this is what additional fees are. I think some of the frustration, and we talked about it earlier, comes down the line where owners say, well, I don't understand why the management fee was 10 grand. And when I look at the last 12 months, I see the fees of 20 grand because of all of these additional fees. We feel a bit hoodwinked here. We feel there's a lack of transparency. I wonder if someone like yourself in that role of relationship manager, if they were to say straight up, on the engagement. Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is your fixed fee. It's that much, but you can expect it's probably going to be this much extra
Mm-hmm.
over 12 months because of the additional fees. As an owner, I'd say, fine, no problem. We've
That's
budgeted
right.
for that. And I don't feel like I've been tricked or trapped.
Comes back to transparency again. So that is one of the
Yeah.
things that come up in that initial request when they're phoning through or touching base is one of those is these extra costs. So most definitely, that is exactly what I do. I think you know my style a little bit, but I do. And also, what we do as a team here at Strata Plus is involve the committee in all of those extra charges. So we make sure that there is a set budget. We understand what the budget is, and moving forward, what would the committee like to do? Do they hold meetings quarterly? If that's the case, then there is an extra charge for that meeting, but we can adjust that. Maybe the strata manager doesn't need to attend if you feel like you don't want to pay that extra part. You just want the agenda. So there's ways to work within that budget around those extra charges. So the charges are coming into play outside of the agreed services. So they're for additional things that would happen. But as long as the committee and the owners are involved in that, rather than having invoices charged to them at a later date at a high cost, I feel like there's more engagement. Once again, there's value placed on the company and the people that are managing their property. I know, I mean, I can't, we wouldn't say too much, but they're definitely in the industry, tapping back to the industry. This is the passion comes in. But we do know that KPIs are set around these extra charges in some companies and for Schedule B. So it is encouraged to charge, for a KPI as such, whereas it's not ethical. You need to operate and manage the property for the owners to make sure that all their needs are met. And if those costs do need to be incurred, then it needs to be discussed and transparent. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
it's
thank you, Jane, for calling that out. That does happen. I am just heading back to comments here. Michael is saying hello, joining us late to the party. Well, you're here now, Michael. That's all that matters. And Sean is just adding higher fee, better service. It's proven that people leave a company on price but return on service. Benefit,
That's
benefit,
true.
benefit. It's
So
funny,
true,
Sean.
Yeah.
I see that in my practice as well when I have clients who approach me for a quote, and I'm quite upfront these days about saying I am not the cheapest. I am probably the most expensive, but this is my quote. This is the hourly rate. This is what it is. And there will be people, owners, who will come back and say, no, too expensive. I can get someone to do it cheaper. And my standard response to that is, I wish you all the best. And I'm here if you need me. And we do see people come back having not got what they thought they were bargaining for and then needing help down the track. Jay is saying strata managers are not seen and are not heard. So the complaint is always, what exactly do they do? They need to actually report often, at least quarterly, where people's money is going. Yes, very, very good, Jay.
So yeah, that is I mean, once again, it comes down to the system as well, Jay. So I know with the software that we're using, that's accessible all the time. So you have full access, and there are monthly reports, but they're there to view. There's also that's where you meet. So with that strata manager, the committee and the owners can meet. That's what we do at Strata Plus. If we get a new scheme, we sit down, and once again, it comes back to those expectations. So if you would like to have quarterly reports done, that the strata manager lists down what's happened or what activity has taken place, then most definitely. I think generally it's done annually on the properties, but it can be, everything can be tailored to suit the owner's corporation's need. And I think that's important for the owners to know that you're engaging someone to work for you, and you can set that initially within reason.
Yes.
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 And if you don't ask, you don't get. And you're in, as an owner, you're in the driver's seat with establishing the boundaries of this relationship. I like that reminder.
Yep.
And I think Natalie is tapping into that here as well. There are opportunities to work towards additional fees that actually add value so owners can see and touch what they pay for. And I imagine that additional reporting, absolutely, there wouldn't be an objection that comes at an additional cost, but we can see exactly what it is that the strata manager is doing. I want to get into, Jane, this process of handing over a portfolio from one strata management company to another, because I know that you're closely involved in that as well. And I have some involvement in those processes when things go wrong, when documents go missing, or clients are immediately disappointed because what they were promised from the new strata manager hasn't happened. The handover hasn't been as smooth as possible. Sometimes I'm involved in a compulsory appointment where the compulsory manager's coming in and they can't get their hands on files for 4 weeks, and that's
Yeah.
really too long when we're dealing with serious issues in compulsory appointments.
Mm,
Can you give us sort of the behind the scenes of a handover process? What happens, and is there anything
mm.
our managers and our buildings can be doing to make that as smooth as possible?
Yeah. Look, and it can be daunting. It definitely is daunting for some of the owners. For us, what we do, I think, with the actual handover, so once the meeting's been held and it's been validated that it's correct resolutions and we have the agency agreement, I think actually exchanging the records. So we make sure that we do touch base with the strata manager straight away, just to let them know that the resolution has been passed, and this is ideally, we would like all the documents, right? So keeping in mind that the owners own all those books and records. So we need to make sure that we collect everything when we move that across. For us, we also work closely with the strata committee. So if there is 30-day period given to the current strata managers, we would ask that the strata managers provide ideally the strata role and any financials that they might have at that time. So as we can start to look at the UEs and match it up, we'll also get a copy of the strata plan, but we ask the strata committee to do that as well, because often they have those documents. And so that allows us to start the process of setting things up, opening the bank account, and just making sure that we have some of those basic documents there. From there, it depends, because it can be tricky. The digital files now, you can face some challenges there, because some of them are
Mm-hmm.
password locked, depending on the software, may not operate under the system that we use. So it does depends. Obviously, the filing can be a little bit tricky as well. Some people don't name files, or they name them under different codes, or it just depends. It depends. It's very different.
Mm,
So this can take a long, long time for us. It is a long process, guys. It can take 1 to 2 weeks to actually upload everything. The hard copies, we do scan everything through there. We make sure that we have it all online, and anything that we don't, we archive. But it's that constant communication. So we do. Well, I make a big effort to always be professional and courteous to all of our colleagues. The industry is small, and we all work together. And like you said before, it's important when we hand over documents as well to another strata manager that we give everything, and we give it in a very easy filing system, or an easy
mm,
manner that they can easily upload, because you never know when a customer or client might return. So we're courteous with the other strata managers and stay in touch with that company and make sure that we're just kindly pursuing the documents. And if any are
mm,
missing, then we do continue that communication as well and pursue as much as we can. It's really
yeah.
hard. If some documents
There
aren't
are.
there, they aren't there. Like, it's just hard
Yeah.
to
And
get
to
them.
that point, I do want to let our viewers know that there are legal avenues if you do need to pursue them as an owners corporation to get documents delivered up through order of the tribunal if you are having a really hard time getting documents. And some of these documents, you'll know, Jane, are essential. As you said, we need the strata roll to be able to upload it to our system and make sure we know what everybody's UE is and what the levies should be. I have a story of a strata manager. She's actually a member inside our online membership community, and she was very diligent, as a lot of our members are, and she actually looked at the certificate of title to see the schedule of unit entitlements, and
Mm-hmm.
then looked at the schedule that had been provided through the former strata manager software, and they were not
Mm-hmm.
the same. They were
Yeah,
using
it
an
does
old,
happen.
incorrect schedule. So everybody
Mm,
had been levied incorrectly and given the wrong voting rights under special resolutions and polls, because the
mm,
strata manager's system didn't reflect correct UEs. And she came to me and said, do I have to refund owners? What happens? How do I explain that
mm.
everyone's been paying the wrong levies for the last 2 years?
Yeah. No, it does happen. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary. It's so important to check it. It definitely is. And to have the original. So
Mm.
obviously you can download those as well. I think, can't you? Can, from SAI
True.
Global and things as
Yeah.
well, certain
Yeah.
documents. So but it is important. We definitely it's important that we do that, and pass it on to the committee as well. So they have those copies, and then they match up with what we're provided with then from the
Mm.
current strata manager.
Something else that I saw recently, and just to alert any strata managers watching, whether experienced or new, changing the address for service of the owners
Mhm.
corporation. That's a
Oh,
form
okay,
that
yes.
you lodge with Land Registry Services, and it gets updated on the certificate of title for the common property.
Mhm.
I was working with an owner in a building recently, and I knew they'd had a new strata manager there for about a year, and I had cause to get an updated title for the common property, and it still had the old strata manager's details on there. And I had to
Oh
say,
god.
point out to my client, these managers still haven't done that. And to me, that's
Yeah,
strata management 101. And if you've just
it
hired a
is.
new manager who hasn't done that, not a
Well,
great
it's
look.
the checklist, yeah. So look, I should mention, I personally just didn't even tap over that then myself, but we do have an amazing transition team. So I work closely with them, but it's the transition team have a thorough checklist there. So all of
Mm,
those points are ticked, and it's essential that that is done before it can actually be live, classed as live on the system.
yeah.
Uh, the rest of it is dummy until every single box has been ticked and every article is received, or there's a comment around that why it couldn't be obtained. But yes, change of
Mm.
address is definitely essential.
Yeah, and as I said, it's the admin, the procedural things that bring us
Mhm.
undone. So making sure you have a checklist for that is really important.
Mhm.
What do you think, Jane? Do you think buildings should be looking at new strata managers or considering going out to market regularly and maybe every few years? Or do you think, you know what, you got one you're happy with, stick to it?
Mm.
What would your recommendation be?
Do you know, I do, it comes back to value again. So I think if you're happy with the service that you're receiving and you feel that you are getting value, then the once again, I'm speaking on behalf of the committee here, but because they have the due diligence there. If they're done a thorough check, I would no, I would basically say no, you don't need to go out and tender. I would say that potentially the committee might want to evaluate every now and then the current strata management company they're with. So if they're happy, that
Mm,
is fantastic. The relationship with the strata manager is obviously very important, but it's not the only thing to consider in that evaluation. So maybe just look at the company overall, who's carrying out the trust accounting for them? Are they happy with the way the accounts are presented? How is the compliance team operating there? Are they happy with everything on that end of things? Is there education provided, or is there enough communication being provided, whether it's online or whatever the case may be? I think just having a holistic evaluation of the overall service that you're receiving is great. If the committee can do that, and then they can validate the decision to not go out and
mm.
tender. I think if you're happy with your strata manager, then that's great.
Yeah,
Or
and
strata
I think
management company, I
sometimes
should say.
yeah, I think
Yep.
sometimes looking at what other companies are doing, particularly in our very fast changing space, and over the last 12 months, boy, have we seen
Mm,
some changes when it comes to
yeah.
tech. Looking at what other companies are doing and then going back to your strata manager, who you might have been with for some years, and saying, hey, do you
Hmm.
guys do this? Or do you have electronic records inspections? Do you use a software platform that we can do pre-meeting electronic voting? And if you don't, then triggering that path for the strata manager to say, you know what, you're the third client who's asked me that, and I'm going to start putting
I
that
think
in
that's a great
place.
idea.
Because what we've heard is shifting strata managers is a big deal, and there are a lot of pain points there. And I agree with you, Jane. It shouldn't be something that's just done just because we've been with the same company for the last 3 years. I think if we do go back to our hardworking strata managers and request a different level of service, an additional
Mhm.
item that they might not have thought of, then strata managers would be receptive to that.
I agree. I think everyone wants to know where they can improve, especially as a business. So if there is
Mm,
something that can change or be improved, then we're definitely open to that. I think that a lot of the strata committees that I've dealt with are quite open to that as well, and that they do. Oh, definitely here, I know that the guys have the regular meetings and also the senior management team with some of the clients, just to make sure that what was expected at that agreed service level is still happening. Has that changed? Does it need to be reviewed
mm.
or adapted? Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
do hear some buildings who have been with a management company for a long time, 10 years plus,
Yeah.
experiencing difficulties and then coming to me and saying, Amanda, we're being punished for our loyalty because the strata manager has become complacent. They think we're easy, we're good mates, we get along well, we've been around for so long. Our management fees keep going up every year in
Mm.
accordance with the contract that we've signed.
Right. Yeah.
And a new building
Yeah.
that's just come on is the one getting all the attention and they're being looked after. And we're just sort of, oh, yeah, they'll always be around. So that would be my word of caution when I see it from the other side, clients coming to me with those
Yes.
complaints.
Hmm.
Strata managers, just be careful that you are looking after your best clients.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It comes back to communication, doesn't it? Again, like it
Mm,
is having that relationship. So, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I
mm.
think.
And I
change.
know, Jane, you're involved in when things go wrong, touching base with the client, getting involved, perhaps mediating the discussion between the client and the
Mhm.
strata manager that may be having some difficulties. What's the solution there that you come to? Is it, sending the building off to a different manager inside the same company, or
Yeah.
what kind of things do you do to
Yeah.
resolve it?
It does depend. It does depend. But yes, most definitely. And do you know what? Not everyone gets along easily with everyone. So there will come times where, your committee members have changed, and maybe that relationship isn't as easy between the strata manager and the current committee. So it could be that the strata manager needs to be changed. And I find personally that going in and speaking with clients without the strata manager there, that they feel that they can speak more openly as well. So if that is the case, we do find out quite quickly, and that's something we most definitely do here. Aside from that, I think it does come back to expectations again, and also understanding what they wanted to achieve, and what was to be delivered. So refocusing on that, and we do different. It depends. We're able to tailor to meet the owner's needs. So,
Mm,
and there will be times that it might be that we do deliver some training sessions. We've done that recently. We had an initiative here, Capital Works Grant, that we offered as a competition to some of the owners. And one of the submissions that won chose to have a training session delivered from Strata Plus, and that was because they felt that not all the owners understood what their responsibilities were at that time, and that they wanted to meet more of the team from Strata Plus, which was fantastic.
mm,
So we were able to do that. But I suppose I mentioned that because there's definitely different things that can be delivered to ensure that the owners are happy with the
mm.
contract, and that can be adapted to meet their needs, most definitely.
Yeah. And it's good to hear that owners are understanding that it's about gaining knowledge. It's about
Yeah.
everyone in the community, maybe all of the committee members, if not some owners as well, understanding the
Hmm.
ins and outs about strata legislation and how our strata managers work, and asking for that additional information. And that's giving you, as a management company, a really important message, isn't it? That, look, if these guys want it, then there's got to be other buildings out there who want it as
Yeah,
well.
that's it.
And I know you're a smart cookie, so you'd be parking that information
I
in
know,
the
and
brain.
I shouldn't. I can hear myself saying training, but that probably comes back to some of my earlier days where I've done delivered training. But it really is. I mean, it is training, but it's information. It's an information
Mm,
session, and I think it's fantastic that people would like to learn more. It's just, yeah, making
mm.
sure we can pass it on.
Yep. Awesome. Oh,
Mm,
well, it has been so lovely chatting to you, Jane. Our hour is
thank you.
almost up. It always flies
Oh my
by.
gosh,
And thank you to
it is.
everybody who has been tuning in. I know your colleagues are just on the other side of the wall there, Jane, Friday afternoon. Hopefully they have
No,
a drink or
I can't
two
see them, thank goodness. No, yeah, no, they're a
waiting
great
for you.
team.
Now, do let us know how our viewers can find out more about you and about Strata Plus and get in touch.
Oh, thank you. It's been so lovely to speak with you. It's bizarre because you can't see all the comments, so I'm not sure what anyone has asked, but it's
They're all
fantastic to
good.
be here today. Definitely reach out just through the website. I think probably is the best, strataplus.com.au, and you'll find our details on there. There's quite a few resources, which is fantastic as well for owners. So a little bit more information, but all the contact details are there. So, and you can also, yeah, look at a little bit more history and information about the business overall. Be great.
Excellent. Now, Jane, I know you personally and I know you professionally. You have been in this industry for such a long time, and you are one of the good eggs, I have to say.
Oh,
One of the
thank
good
you.
eggs.
That's
And
so
we're very,
kind.
very lucky to have you and your expertise. And thank you for sharing all of those insights today. I'm just seeing a comment here from Alain saying, great topic, enjoyed every moment. Thanks, Amanda and
Oh,
Jane.
thanks,
And a
Elaine.
thank you
Oh,
there
look,
from Natalie as
and
well.
back at you, Amanda. I'm very, very blessed to be on today, and thank you. Feel very privileged, and we're very lucky to have you, as well as the owners are very blessed. So thank you. I hope
Thank
you have
you.
a great time in that Hunter Valley.
I will. I was just about to wish you a lovely weekend as
Thank
well.
you.
And when we're both back in Sydney at the same time, we will catch up.
Yes,
And
be lovely.
happy weekend to all of our viewers. Go out and enjoy, rest, recover from your nuts week. I know it's like that. Get ready for another one next
Mm,
week, but we love it.
gosh,
All
thank you.
right. I'm going to say goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.